Hello everyone and welcome back to Sometimes and Forever. I'm Denny Downing and this is the show where we talk about romance with a healthy dose of reality, although I must admit that today's episode is far more reality than any romance. But what can I say? Today we're talking about Nobody's Girl, a memoir of surviving abuse and fighting for justice. I just finished reading this autobiography and honestly, it left me with a lot of mixed emotions. It's a powerful story. Yes, it's raw, it's painful, and at times really hard to read. This is a memoir of Virginia Giuffre, and in it, she shares her experiences in a way that forces you to stop and think about how power, privilege, and silence can all come together to destroy lives. But at the same time, I found myself wrestling with some parts, especially around personal responsibility and how we talk about survival and choice. So in this episode, I'm going to share my honest thoughts, the good, the hard, and the complicated, about this autobiography. All right, let's get into it. So in this autobiography, Nobody's Girl, Virginia begins by telling us her life before she met Jeffrey Epstein or before she came into his orbit. And hers, I must admit, was a childhood marked by instability and trauma. She was abused by her father and another man called Forrest. He was a family friend. The abuse, it seems, stopped when she got her period at age 11. Her early life was very painful, and as I said before, it was hard to read, but I made it through. So I must warn you, it's not for the faint of heart, and if you have ever been abused, or if you know somebody who's ever been abused, please approach this book with caution, because she doesn't shy away from the abuses, and she talks about them in somewhat detail. It's a bit detailed how she talks about it. She doesn't paint herself as perfect. That is true, and she admits to being lost and looking for a way out. That kind of honesty for me is what was one of the strongest points in the book, and you can see how easy it was for somebody like her to be manipulated. As a teenager, so I'm moving really fast through the book because I really want to get into my own thoughts of it. But when she's a teenager, she gets a job at Mar-a-Lago. She says she was 15. But it was later revealed that she was actually 16 when she started working at Mar-a-Lago. Anyway, this is where she meets a very put together, a very pish-posh Ghislaine Maxwell. And you know what happens next, right? She falls into the clutches of Jeffrey Epstein, and she falls into his web. She says she was forced to have sex with various rich and powerful men. There were scientists in the lot, politicians, you name it. Later in the book, Virginia writes about breaking away from Epstein's control. She got married and she started a family. In my opinion, the writing of the book itself isn't overly polished, but it's pretty good. It's a raw and emotional kind of finished book. It's very human, and I think that really works in her favor. So, what do I think of this autobiography? Here are the things that I really had to sit with. These are my thoughts. These are the things that came to me after I read the book. There's no question that Virginia was a victim. She was very young, and it's so easy to victimize young people. Not only was she young, she was extremely underexposed. There are so many things she did not know, and she became trapped in a system that preyed on her vulnerability. I think it's something in human nature. I don't know what it is, but I think that the stronger people tend to prey on weaker people, and this is what happens to her. So it really is heartbreaking from that point of view. But you know who her real abusers were for me? Yes, it is that she was abused by Epstein. She was afraid of him, and there were lots of rich people that she was forced to have relations with. But for me, her real abusers were her parents. Let me tell you why I say this. I'm saying this based on what she has written in the book. And in the book, she alleges, as I said before, that between the ages of 7 and 11, her father and a family friend touched her. The way she tells the story, the reader gets the impression that her mother knew about the touching but ignored what was happening. If this is true, then it is obvious that they are the ones who set her up for a lifetime of abuse. They didn't give her the sort of protection and the sort of stability that is needed to raise a child properly. This level of abuse and betrayal by her parents is what caused her to be looking for love, a home, and parents. So it was easy for her to fall for anything the super rich Epstein and the pish posh Maxwell said. She tried to reconnect with her parents further in her life. When she became an adult and she had her own family, she tried to reconnect with her parents, to reconcile with them, and to kind of just, make everything easy, because she wanted a family. It's so obvious that that's all she wanted. But I ask the question, why did she want reconciliation with these two people so much? These are two people who showed her over and over who they really were. Of course, her mother says that she didn't know anything about the abuse, and her father says he didn't do it. So her mother says she didn't know, her father says he didn't do it. So I guess we just have to leave it there. But if what Virginia Giuffre says, if what she says in this book is true, then her parents set her up for the abuse that came in her life later. So yes, it is true that she was abused by all of these older men. But if she was never abused by her parents, she wouldn't have felt that abuse was a part of life. Her husband, Robbie, he saved her. There's no doubt about that. He saved her from Epstein and Maxwell. And when they started having children, he gave her a purpose to fight for justice. But there was abuse in their marriage. There was abuse in their marriage, and it was obvious. She doesn't mention it in the autobiography, and I wonder why. In fact, it was the note from her collaborator at the beginning of the book. It is in this note that mention is made of the domestic abuse that Virginia suffered in her marriage. Virginia says nothing about it in the book. I can understand why, because she wanted, perhaps, I'm assuming, that she wanted to save her children from having that sort of experience that they would have seen and have lived, that she didn't want them to see that in print. And to a certain extent, I can't shake the feeling that she had some amount of gratitude for her husband for saving her, and so she was not going to say these things about him in the book. And I also think that she really, really wanted this book to be about the rich and powerful people who abused her, and not about the other people in her life who abused her. I feel, though, that she could have said it in the book. I mean, everyone knows that a man who gets married to somebody like Virginia, who has had that kind of a past, he's going to be mean to her about it at some point. And if you're going to speak about abuse, speak about it all the way. Speak about it in your family, speak about it with the strangers who did it to you. Just let us know, because it is a part of your experiences as well. But she left that out, so I'm gonna honor her decision not to say anything about it in the book. There are two things, though, that I want to mention about this book. Two things that kind of jumped out at me that I want to mention before I close. In the beginning of the book, Virginia recounts a time when she went to the Louvre Museum in Paris. And she's on a tour of the museum. And when she enters a particular room in the museum, that's when she says, "Oh my God, I've been here before. I have been here before with Epstein and Maxwell." And that memory ruined the entire visit. And so she had to leave. But, she goes back. So I have to ask myself, when she went to the Louvre Museum with Maxwell and Epstein, she was about, let's say, 17, going on 18. That's a big person. How could she not remember that she had been there before? How is it that she did not have that memory? And it was when she was in her 30s and went back that she remembers she had been there before. Was it that she was that drugged up? Or is it that she was just that unexposed that she did not know what the Louvre Museum is? I don't know. And then it begs the question, if she didn't remember the Louvre Museum, how could she remember all the men that she slept with? How could she remember all of them? To be honest, she did try to answer this question in the book, because, believe it or not, I'm not the first person to ask that question. So many people have. Her answer to that question is that when you have been with somebody in such an intimate setting and they were that close up in your face, it's kind of hard not to remember them. Well, make of that what you will. Also, she says that during her time with Epstein, she had a boyfriend. Actually, I think she had 2 boyfriends, but this one kind of stood out to me. This boyfriend was living with her in the apartment that she was paying for with money that she got from Epstein for sleeping with all the men that he told her to sleep with. So this is a no good boyfriend who was actually also a thief. But Virginia says that after being with all of these older men, it was really good to go home to somebody her own age. And I really have a problem with that. I really have to ask myself, at what point did she give her vagina a break? At what point did she step back and say, this time is my time. I'm going to take some time for myself and just relax. It doesn't seem that she did that at all. So she really needed some proper guidance in her life, and she really didn't get it. Even when she got married in Thailand, read the book for yourself. I'm really going to encourage you to read the book if you so desire. But when she got married in Thailand, she had her boyfriend back home in America in her apartment. So really, she was not taking care of herself. It's obvious that she wanted somebody to save her. She was looking for a savior, and that is why it was so easy for her to fall for abuse. Because anybody who looked like they could help her, she was gonna go with that person. Something else I found interesting in the book is that Virginia said that Epstein was a clean freak, and yet he had unprotected sex with her the first time they met. Keep in mind that he didn't know anything about her sexual history, didn't know anything about her at all. And he's a clean freak, and yet he's having unprotected sex with somebody he just met. I really have to wonder if that too is true. But I'm gonna give it to her. This is what she wrote in the book, but I had a question mark over that. I do think that she was enthralled by Maxwell and Epstein, as I said before, and she really wanted that kind of hype life, that kind of rich life that they were offering. But she, to a certain extent, she wanted her freedom. Throughout the whole retelling, I couldn't help but feel that she could have helped herself a little better. And these are my thoughts of her. She could have helped herself a little bit more. This is what complicates her whole story for me. She wanted the fancy rich life, but she wanted freedom. I'm not saying this to judge her. I'm not judging her. I say it because she could have done some classes with some of the money she was getting. She could have saved some of the money properly. She could have done something to carve out a life for herself. But I suppose when you've been abused and controlled and, you've had no real good examples in your life, it's really hard to make sensible choices. So maybe I'm expecting too much from her. Nevertheless, at some point in her life, as she got older, she got married and she had her children, she found her voice. She went from being a voiceless victim to being one of the loudest voices that helped to expose this network of sexual predators. So from her silence, she found her strength, and that is something that's worth acknowledging and actually applauding. So good on you, Virginia. So yeah, Nobody's Girl really got me thinking. I do believe that Virginia was a victim. That is absolutely clear. But her story also reminds us that survival is messy and it is complicated. It's not a straight line, and there are lots of nuances in there. But she survived nevertheless. When you read the book, you can feel empathy toward her, and you can feel some of what she went through. But still, you have to ask the tough questions about accountability and self-responsibility. And I think this is where, yes, it's true that exposing the people who are predators in society is a good thing. But more than that, I think persons who are in positions of authority, who have this kind of information, can also do a two-pronged approach where they not just try to expose and shame those who have engaged in these activities, these rich and powerful people, but they should also use their voice to educate persons who could fall victim to these sorts of schemes or these sorts of activities. So in the same breath that you're talking about the rich people who were predators, find some way to run some campaigns to educate young girls and young boys too about the harm that can come if you allow yourself to fall prey to something that just seems too good to be true. So tell people, educate them. I'd love to hear from you. What do you think? Did the book change how you see Virginia's story? Or did it leave you conflicted like it left me conflicted? Let me know. Thank you so much for listening, and if you found this conversation interesting, please share it with somebody who likes honest and nuanced discussions. Until next time, please take care of yourselves. Please make sure that you tell the persons in your life how much you love them and that you reach out to those who might need help. Healing starts when we tell the truth. Tell the truth, not just to the people we're talking to, but to ourselves, even if it's uncomfortable. Thank you.